When you go to open your mouth to tell somebody good news that you have received, and it means that your life will be better or that you're progressing in one way or another, and you get an inkling in yourself to be quiet and not to share it with somebody, quiet. Hello, my gorgeous friend, and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, welcome. And if you are returning, welcome back. So I want you to get nice and comfortable because I am about to talk about a topic that is not so comfortable, but we need to address. Because as ladies who want to blossom to be the best versions of ourselves, it's important for us to tackle even the topics that we are not comfortable with, because this is the only way we're going to grow, the only way we're going to mature, the only way we're going to build relationships that are lasting. So you may have seen by the title, I am going to talk about the topic of envy and how to deal with envious people in your life. And this happens to the best of us, regardless of how caring, nurturing, how much you want the best for people. Sometimes that energy that you bring into life, that attitude you bring into life is not reciprocated. And it's not for us to sit here to be judge and jury, but it's for us to sit here to see how we can best manage ourselves and our behaviors when we are faced by people who are like this, to be able to just get out of it without any bruises and without any trauma and without any drama. One thing that envious people will bring you is drama. So let's get straight onto it. Why don't we start by finding out what the definition of envy is, so we make sure we're all on the same page, okay? So according to the Oxford Dictionary, envy is a feeling of discontented or resentful longing aroused by someone else's possessions, qualities, or luck. Whew. So here it is. I have definitely seen envy at work. I have been a victim, if you want to call it, of envy. I have felt that envy could be brewing in me and I've had to catch myself, but that's a video for another time where we talk about how to address yourself and how to deal with yourself when you feel yourself getting envious. Because again, none of us are without fault. The question is what we do about it when we notice that we're doing something that is not very ideal in the grand scheme of things. So today we're just going to address dealing with people who are directing envy at you. Now that we know what envy is, and it's most of the time characterized by somebody who likes something about you, but they don't quite know how to engage with the energy that is you, and therefore they just start to envy you. Maybe you may just have a lucky star and everything you do just turns to gold, and everywhere you go people love you. There's something about your personality that the minute people see you, they're magnetically attracted to you, right? And what people don't quite understand is that magnetic energy that you have, usually for the most part, when you're that type of person, you come with good intentions. You come as yourself. You don't come with a facade trying to be and act like something that you're not. Therefore, people naturally gravitate towards you because they see you for who you are. Now, the envious person could potentially be seeing you shining bright, being who you are, and they don't feel like they can be who they are. Because sometimes when it comes to people envying your characteristics, it's quite, to be honest, it's actually really sad because they don't necessarily see the power they hold by being themselves. But instead, they almost want to channel and tap into who you are in order for them to shine. There's this thing that I heard once and it resonated with me. It's, you don't have to dim my light in order for you to shine. We can both shine at the same time. The difference here is where I shine and the qualities I may have, you may not have. And that's okay, because what you have, I may not have. And that's okay, because together we can hold each other up. We can both shine together. I realized that it comes from us not seeing our full potential and also not developing our potential. So therefore you feel like, that person was, maybe they have so many privileges that I will never have. So therefore I'm just going to give up at life. And instead of trying, I'm just going to sit here and be green with envy. And coincidentally, I'm wearing green. But they decide to be green with envy instead of actually working on themselves to become a better, more refined version of themselves so that they don't even have to be envying somebody else, right? So went off on a tangent there, but it can get very intense very quickly. So maybe we should start by listing out ways in which envy displays itself in our lives. I need to preface by saying envy doesn't only happen in friendships. It can happen in families, within siblings. That's what you always hear about, sibling rivalry. It can happen with parents and children. It can be very messy. It can go as far as envy within relationships. So where you have a couple, maybe when you met, you were both really successful. Then one person starts to do better than the other. One person starts to earn more than the other. And if what grounds you isn't love and mutual respect and a sense of supporting each other, then things can definitely go left when envy is in the mix. And also envy can present itself at work, in the workplace. If you're somebody who's naturally talented at your craft, who comes in and is a quick learner, or if you're somebody who comes in and implements things that are spoken about even months and years after you implemented them, then naturally envy could happen there. And this one I think happens even more now, especially with all of us sharing our lives here on social media, is envy from strangers. And this I will never understand. But I get it, it happens. But I will never wrap my head around how somebody can be envious of somebody that they do not know. You do not know me from a can of paint. You do not know the specifics of my life, but yet you're envious of me. That I will never understand. I don't know why it happens, but all we're trying to figure out here is how we can manage ourselves. So we're not going to go down that rabbit hole. Let's deal with this now. Again, none of us are without fault. I'm sure all of us have been in that position of being envious of somebody or somebody envying us. So whichever position you're in right now, let's just try to figure out how you can actually detect when somebody is potentially envious of you. And if you're anything like me and sometimes you're blissfully unaware because you try to see the best in people, this may be a wake-up call, and maybe the wake-up call that you needed just in time to save yourself a lot of heartache, trauma, and just PTSD from dealing with people. So a very obvious one that all of us can relate to is when people make negative comments, completely unprovoked, from nowhere, just decide to say something to completely ruin your day. Half the time when these kind of comments are made, they don't necessarily come from a stranger. They come from someone you know, someone you respect, and maybe someone's voice that you value. So it makes it that much more worse. You sometimes need to be very self-aware to catch them. And when you don't catch them, this is when it starts to fester, it starts to brew in them because they're like, wait, I'm trying to, and this is the thing with people who are almost like professional envious people, if it's such a thing. Should we call them PEPs, professional envious people? I don't know. People who are like that, they actually get rattled when you do not feed into their negativity, when you do not catch the bait that they're trying to throw your way to ruin your day. This is one that I think we have all encountered at some point or the other, but it's one that I think if you don't have the wisdom and the self-awareness, if you don't catch it, you can be at the mercy of this person's words. And not to kind of like bring religion into this, when they say the power of life and death is in your tongue, there's some people that know how to wield that as a weapon, and they will weaponize those negative words and comments and shatter your self-esteem, shatter your confidence, and shatter your belief in yourself. So this is why I think we need to catch this at the door and find a way to deal with it before it becomes bigger than it needs to be. And closely tied to that, it's excessive criticism. Somebody who just loves to throw criticism around, and maybe they're just someone who by nature is very pessimistic, but it's like you can be the most perfect person, which nobody's perfect, but you can be as good as you can be as an individual, be dressed to the nine, be well educated, have great relationships with your family or your friends, but this person will find a flaw, something to criticize to just pull you apart. This is a very clear indication of an envious individual. I don't want to tie this just to friendships because I think it can happen and it can come and be directed to you from any angle. Like I said, family, spouse, stranger, it could come from anywhere. But if you have somebody who's excessively criticizing you, you need to start questioning yourself and ask whether their intent is good or bad. Because some people may, package it as constructive criticism. Constructive criticism right, is very different from excessive criticism that is baseless. So if somebody is giving you constructive criticism, say for example you're at work and you know that this person always means you well, and they said, you know, say for example you gave a presentation and they turn around and they say, I know who you are outside of that presentation setting. I think you need to bring more of yourself. You know, speak louder, bring your personality, inject a bit of energy that I know you have. You know, that is positive criticism because they're reinforcing the good you're already doing and saying they know that you can do more. Now, on the other hand, if you have somebody who, say, for example, similar setting, right? You're at work, you've given a presentation, most people have congratulated you, they've said, listen, that's your first presentation, you've done really well, so on and so forth. Then this person comes at you sideways and they're like, I didn't quite understand what you said in that meeting or in that presentation. I feel like you could have been more prepared, and the way you spoke, it wasn't very clear to me. I didn't understand it. So maybe next time you can do better. But the energy they come at it with, it's like, friend, that's not the energy that I tolerate around me. If you're going to criticize me, let it be some form of constructive criticism, but not just criticism for the sake of it. You're not giving me something solid to work off. You're not giving me feedback that I can take on board, right? So excessive criticism, don't turn a blind eye to that one, okay? Oh, this one is a good one. And I think, not even I think, I know I have been blissfully unaware of this one. And I think you can relate to this too. Competitive behavior. People can be, or someone in particular, can be in a position whereby they feel intimidated by you just being you. You showing up and being the best version of yourself can be so intimidating to somebody that they want to compete with you. I've never really understood competition because I get it in a space of, yes, there's some level of competition you need to have in some avenues, like I just mentioned now with like work, and maybe if you are going into sports or you're doing something that is, okay, we're competing for gold, silver, bronze, or what have you. I understand. If you have someone in your life that's meant to be a friend or an acquaintance that is constantly trying to one up on you, you need to find a way to pull yourself from that situation or quietly bow out of that situation. But if you have someone in your life that's constantly competing with you to a point where you start to feel that you're in competition, although you yourself could care less about it, it's something that you need to pay attention to. Become more self-aware in your day-to-day life so that that competitive energy doesn't seep into your relationship and then get to a point where it turns toxic and this person will try and be and do anything to not only be better than you, but maybe even take something away from you so that you become lesser than them, at least in their eyes, because for them, they're trying to make sure that they are at a level that is deemed as higher and better than what you are. And for me, I think that competitive behavior stems from a lot of inferiority complex. If you have an inferior complex, in as much as people think people who are inferior kind of shelter, if you really think about it, people who have an inferior complex have a chip on their shoulder and therefore walk around trying to prove themselves, trying to act like something that they're not so that they can be deemed as something better. So if this person is, number one, competitive, and then they have an inferior complex, it's a recipe for disaster. If you can, once you spotted this, find a way to get away. Simple. Now, this one may ruffle a few feathers. Have you ever noticed that there's some of your maybe so-called friends from the past, maybe friends right now, family that surround you as well right now, that do not have an ounce of genuine happiness towards you when your life is working out? You know those people that see your successes, they hear about your successes, and instead of celebrating you, or better yet, steering away from you, keeping away from you because they're not happy for you, they have that fake happiness for your success. If you have anyone around you that you get a funny feeling from when you tell them good news, friend, shh, keep it quiet. If you go to say something to somebody, and I'm going to talk about learning to listen to your intuition in another video, so stay tuned. I'll leave that video up here or in the link in the description below. You need to learn how to listen to your intuition. When you go to open your mouth to tell somebody good news that you have received, that you have come across that has been given to you, and it means that your life will be better or that you're progressing in one way or another, and you get an inkling in yourself to be quiet and not to share it with somebody, quiet. It's not everyone that is around you that you think is for you that is actually for you. And again, it can be somebody that you value, somebody that you love, somebody that you want to see good for, and you want to see them progressing, but they don't want that for you. And sadly, again, it's something that is outside of our control. But what can you do to mitigate the issues and the risks that come with telling somebody your good news, when in actual fact, it's probably the worst news they've heard this year, because that's not what they wanted for you. Sometimes people have that level of unhappiness and dissatisfaction for your happiness because they wish that it were them. You cannot control how someone feels about you and how they feel about your successes. You cannot do that. I have been at fault for trying to sometimes even over explain my success and why I deserve the success. And I am done doing that. We're not doing that. We're not going there. Here is another one. Can be a little bit of a contrast to what I just said now, when people are not genuinely happy for you, and maybe they don't even say congratulations. Maybe you got a new job, they don't say congratulations. Maybe you got engaged, you got a child. They are your nearest and dearest, but they do not even want to support you or to celebrate you, right? So those are the ones that are unhappy for your happiness. Unhappy for your happiness, and they show it. But on the other side, there are those who are exactly like that, but their flattery is actually an indication of their envy. You know those people who congratulate you for something, and for some reason, although it should, it doesn't sit right with you. It's like excessive flattery. You know, I've actually got a friend who's a little bit like this. This person's flattery, it got to a point where I was like, this is just too much. Like, I could feel that it made me uneasy. You know, so this person would see me and they were like, oh my goodness, you look really nice. And mid-conversation again, oh my goodness, you look really nice. Oh, I wish I had this, and I wish, and those statements of I wish I had this and I wish I had this, and oh, you're so lucky that, you know, you have such a nice figure and your skin is always glowing and your hair is always nice. But it gets to a point where it's like, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, stop. This is too much. That level of excessive flattery to me, and I think to people, and I am not a psychologist. I am not trying to say that this is definitely it. However, definitely is something that is very close to envy when it gets to a point where you randomly catch a person just staring at you, glaring, staring, glaring, right, piercing right into your soul, and it's like they've zoned out. And that, for me, I feel, first of all, feels very uncomfortable. Second of all, I'm like, what are you capable of when I'm not looking? Third of all, I'm like, thank you for the compliments, but does this then mean that you're not as happy about yourself as you put across? And that then kind of shows you that this person may have their own insecurities. And by me being confident and owning who I am, that actually, if somebody is not secure in who they are, you being who you are and you owning your space and owning your style and owning the way you carry yourself, that can actually be something that aggravates them. So this is what I mean. Self-awareness is important, because me, maybe 10 years ago, I would not have clocked on to this particular individual. But now that I handle her accordingly. I'm just like, stop with the flattery, that's too much. And I actually call it. Call a spade a spade. And if that person is wise, they will either change their ways or they will get away from you. And this isn't the first friend, sorry, don't even want to call her a friend. This isn't the first person I've come across that has been like that. So what happens in life is that sometimes I feel we get tested. You get sent the same person in a different body who does the same thing. And the question is, how do you deal with this person? How do you deal with this particular scenario? And if you're not able to deal with it, the question is, are you really able to start attracting the right type of friendships into your life if you keep entertaining the same rubbish that you have been all your life? If that's not a word, I don't know what is. So I've left the worst for last. I mean, all of those are terrible and they could all have terrible outcomes, but I've left the worst for last. And this one is, you can sense and notice envy when you have somebody who's, number one, a gossip, Number two, likes to spread new rumors. Because the likelihood is, if you have a gossip that likes to spread rumors, they are doing the same thing that they're doing towards you or with you with somebody else. If you're somebody that loves a good gossip, oh, I just love a good gossip, or you're just spreading rumors, the minute I see you that type of person, first of all, our conversations and our interactions are limited, because I don't trust you. I don't trust you. And like they say, I don't trust you as far as I can throw you. So if you have somebody who likes to gossip and spread rumors, please stay clear of them, because the same thing they're doing with you, they're doing about you when you're not around. If that person is doing that so comfortably, there has to be something going on within themselves that they're not happy with. There has to be something going on within their life that they're not content with. Hence why they're that happy to be talking about other people. Same thing with people who are online trolling, gossiping, and passing word about this person and that person, and they do not have the facts. Those type of people, leave them where you found them. So those were 6 signs of people or someone who is envious of you and how it presents itself. Because like I said, some of it can actually be very subtle, but over time it could be problematic. And the reason why I say problematic is because we do not really know the full capacity of someone's envy towards us and what they can do when pushed. Because somebody who's envious of you, let's be honest, doesn't really like you, doesn't really care for you and your well-being, regardless of how much they say they do through their excessive flattery and all of that nonsense. Now it's all about, how do we deal with people like this? Because sometimes we feel guilty for feeling what we feel. I mentioned very briefly that it's important to listen to your intuition. It's important to listen to your gut feeling if that is something that you resonate with, because we always get a warning about these type of people before it presents itself physically, whether by verbal abuse, whether by physical abuse. And sadly, some of these envious people end up becoming quite dangerous, and it could be tragic and or fatal, depending on how far they decide to take things. I'm not saying this to fearmonger, but all I'm saying is, if you meet somebody and something in you just doesn't resonate with them and doesn't sit right, start to be aware of it. Start to assess the way they interact with you and your friends and your family. If it's a family member, and again, when you're sharing those good news, or you're doing something that is progressive and you can see that they're very much side-eyeing you, underhanded comments, wherever it might be, study them. And when you see that, one of the quickest and most instant solutions is distance yourself where you can. If this is somebody that you would call on a regular basis, but every time you call them, it's always, about them, and they're always kind of throwing their negativity at you, and yet when you share good news, instantly it's shot down, stop making the phone calls. You have a choice. You have a choice as to whether you interact with this individual or not. So by you interacting with them and engaging with them and allowing them to treat you the way they're treating you, then you are actually enabling the envious behavior. Because on this channel, I don't want us to be pretentious, like we're not in control. I don't want us to act like we have no level of accountability. You have to be accountable for this. And trust me, I am saying this because I had to have this conversation with myself when it came to some individuals that I thought were friends, even acquaintances, and actually they turned out to be people who sadly were not very good for my life, my health, or my peace of mind. So the first thing you can easily do is distance yourself, whether that's physically, whether that's digitally, whether it's unfollowing people, whether it's stopping a communication. Find a way to do that and see how you feel when you've detached yourself from that envious energy, because it can be very heavy. Once you've become aware of the negativity that you are allowing yourself to be immersed in, detach yourself. That's number one. Number two, if you are feeling brave and you love and value this person and you feel as though it's something within that relationship that can be salvaged, you can have a conversation about it. Will this end well most of the time? Maybe not, because nobody likes to be called out. Nobody likes to be told that you're an envious person, or I feel as though something isn't sitting right between us. The conversation may go something along the lines of, I really like you and I value you as a friend. And I feel like we've come a really long way with our friendship. but there's something about the interactions that we have that leave me feeling a little bit deflated. And I feel as though I don't have your full support, or perhaps I feel as though when I do have good news, you're not genuinely happy for me. Is there something in that, or am I reading into it incorrectly? And now, depending on how mature you both are, this conversation can go either left or right, in terms of left being they will not be very happy that you confronted them and they will leave you hanging and leave you alone, or maybe cause an argument and that friendship will be done for. Or they could be on the other side where they're like, actually, I wanted to have this conversation with you because I've always felt that you've been so lucky, such and such, and you know, I feel like my life hasn't fallen in line the way yours was, and maybe I did feel a little bit of jealousy and envy, and I didn't know how to address it, right? So if you're mature, you may find somebody that actually opens up to you and you're able to heal your relationship. Now, the third way to deal with this is pack yourself together, pack your stuff, and go. No explanation needed. No letters need to be written. No emails need to be sent. No goodbye texts with long, endless paragraphs need to be written. Just go. And this, I think, is probably warranted when you have done what I've just said now, which is you've tried to address it. It hasn't worked. If anything, it's gotten worse. You've tried to distance yourself and this person is still finding a way to kind of seep in and leak into your life despite all of your best efforts. Or worse yet, they've seen that you've distanced yourself and you've now become the focal point of all their energy, and they're doing anything they can to sabotage you. They've tried to, you know, defame you if you're in a position of power. They've tried to spread bad rumors about you. This is when you just leave that person alone. Leave them alone, because sometimes, like I said, jealousy is from a place that we do not understand and we will never understand. Okay? So I'm just going to leave that out there. Do with that what you may. And I think the last solution, fourth and last solution, is if you have done all the above, I'm of the belief that if you need to involve law enforcement, please do. If you need to go into or figuring out how to get restraining orders on people, if it does get to that, because this can happen in relationships, can happen with family, can happen with friends, you know, you never know when envy can turn fatal, right? Or can turn toxic. So if you do need to go into that, by all means, do it. But one thing I would say is that if it does turn a little bit intense, find a way to deal with it professionally and in a legal ways of things. So that has been it from me. I hope that you have enjoyed this video and that you've got some insights into how envy presents itself, where envy can be presenting itself, and also how to deal with it in the right way so that you protect your peace of mind, because we need to exercise a level of selfishness in this world in order to actually be selfless towards those that genuinely love us and want to see us happy. So until next time, I hope that you find other videos up here that can also be nourishing to your mind and your heart space. And if you think this video would be beneficial to somebody else, make sure that you send it on to them. And until next time, I'll see you here. Bye bye, gorgeous.